This unbelievable story began when the most beautiful Apache woman promised to marry a little boy, and years later, her return brought the entire tribe to a standstill. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Where are you watching from? Let's get started. No one in the Apache lands ever forgot the day the most beautiful woman of the tribe made a promise to a little boy, an innocent vow spoken beside a quiet river, a vow so strange and unexpected that it would echo across years and return to halt an entire tribe in stunned silence. The boy was small, shy, and often overlooked, but destiny has a way of finding those whom the world ignores. And on that summer evening, when the fires burned bright and drums echoed across the canyon, destiny wrapped itself around him in the shape of a woman whose presence seemed carved from legend. The boy's name was Chaitan. Only 7 years old, he wandered through life with the softness of a child who dreamt more than he spoke. Other boys mocked him for his size, for his quiet nature, and for the wooden birds he carved with trembling hands. Those carvings were his escape, small pieces of hope he shaped, while the world around him demanded strength he hadn't yet learned to show. What he didn't know was that someone was watching him, someone whose footsteps carried more grace than the wind, whose gaze saw more deeply than any warrior. Yasha was her name, a woman whose beauty was spoken of from camp to camp. She had arrived with a visiting Apache band for the great summer gathering. Her dark hair flowed like river water, her eyes sharp enough to unsettle even the bravest warriors. Yet what made her unforgettable wasn't just her beauty, it was the quiet confidence she carried, the wisdom in her words, the courage in her decisions. When she stepped into the camp, the laughter of men softened, the chatter of women paused, and even the children turned to stare. But Yasha noticed none of them. She noticed the boy sitting alone under a tree, carving a bird that refused to take shape. She approached slowly, curious about the child who sat apart from everyone else. When she asked him why he carved, he did not look up. Instead, in a soft, shaking voice, he said something that made her breath still. He said that one day he wanted to carve birds that looked real enough to fly, because even wooden birds deserved the sky. She laughed quietly, not mockingly, but with warmth that made him lift his eyes for the first time. And when their eyes met, she saw something in him that others never bothered to see: honesty, vulnerability, and a strange spark of courage hidden beneath layers of childhood uncertainty. That spark made her sit beside him, made her ask about the broken carving lying in the dirt, made her listen when he explained how older boys had stomped on it earlier. Yasha picked it up gently, brushed off the dust, and told him that courage wasn't loud, nor did it belong only to warriors. Courage was in trying again after being broken. It was in holding on to hope when others laughed. Her words reached him like sunlight pushing through clouds. No one had ever spoken to him that way, and without thinking, without planning, he blurted out a sentence that would change both of their futures. He told her he would marry her one day. Silence fell between them. Chaitan felt the heat rise in his cheeks. He regretted the words immediately. She could have laughed. She could have walked away. She could have dismissed him as a foolish child. But Yasha did something no one expected. She smiled softly, touched his trembling hand, and said that if he truly meant those words, if he grew strong, wise, and honorable, she would return someday to see whether he still wished to keep that promise. She made a vow she did not need to make, a vow that wrapped the boy's heart with hope so powerful it lit a fire he had never known before. The next morning, Yasha's group left the camp. Chaitan watched from a distance, clutching his unfinished bird tightly. He believed she would return, believed her words with the pure certainty that only a child could feel. But destiny is never gentle. Only days later, the tribe was attacked by enemies seeking control of the land. Fires raged, families scattered, and the world Chaitan knew collapsed into chaos. In the smoke and confusion, he was separated from his family but rescued by elders who carried him with them as they fled to safety. That night, he carved again, hands shaking, tears burning his eyes, and whispered to himself that she would come back. That promise became the thread that held him together. Fear turned into strength. Weakness turned into determination. As the seasons passed, Chaitan grew under the guidance of wise elders who taught him to hunt, track, ride, and fight. Yet through all the changes, he held on to the memory of a woman who saw potential in him when no one else did. Every year, he carved birds, each one better than the last, as if sharpening not just his skill but his soul. Among the tribe's young hunters, Chaitan became known for quiet discipline and a calm bravery that set him apart. But no one knew the true source of his fire. No one knew he was waiting for a woman whose face haunted his dreams. Meanwhile, Yasha's path took her far from the boy she had once comforted. Her band traveled through harsh winters and scorching summers. She became a respected guide, a peacemaker, a symbol of strength. Yet she carried with her the memory of a small boy with big dreams, a boy who spoke with a sincerity she never forgot. Sometimes she wondered whether he survived the attack, whether he grew strong, whether he remembered his promise. But the world around her offered no answers. Years drifted by like dust on the wind. Then one spring morning, something stirred in her heart. An old memory resurfaced with a sudden pull, and she declared that she needed to return to the tribe by the river bend. Her people were confused, but Yasha offered no explanation. She only said that when a promise calls, the spirit must answer. And so she traveled, unaware that her return would soon bring an entire tribe to a silent halt. When Ayasha and her small escort approached the river bend, the world seemed to hold its breath. The tribe was going about its usual morning routines, women grinding corn, young hunters sharpening arrows, children chasing each other near the horses, when a sharp whistle echoed across camp. Scouts had spotted riders approaching. Warriors moved instinctively, forming a protective semicircle, but as the figures drew closer, their posture shifted. Confusion settled first, then disbelief, then a ripple of shock that spread like fire through dry grass. Because the woman leading the riders was unmistakable. Even after so many years, Yasha's presence carried the same gravity, the same grace that had once set hearts fluttering and stirred whispers among warriors. She sat tall on her horse. Her long dark hair flowing in the wind, her expression calm yet fierce. But what struck the tribe most was the confidence in her posture. It was as if she were returning not as a visitor, but as someone answering a call written long ago. People stopped what they were doing. Children fell silent. Elders rose slowly to their feet, their eyes squinting as if trying to confirm whether they were seeing a memory or a ghost. The warriors who guarded the entrance lowered their weapons, not out of fear or submission, but out of respect. No one expected her. No one understood why she had come. And yet, the entire tribe froze, as if time had momentarily paused out of reverence. In the middle of the silence stood Chaitan. He had been feeding the horses near the corral when he heard the commotion. Turning toward the entrance, he saw her. For a heartbeat, he forgot to breathe. All the years between then and now collapsed into a single moment. He felt again like the boy sitting under a tree, carving a wooden bird while a kind voice told him he had courage. His chest tightened. He didn't know whether he should step forward or stand still, but Yasha made the decision for him. Her eyes swept over the crowd until they found his. Recognition flashed instantly, soft, warm, and steady. The woman who had spoken to a lonely child now looked into the eyes of a grown man who had carried her memory through storms, hunger, battles, and time. She dismounted her horse with a slow, deliberate grace, walked past warriors and elders, and stopped only when she stood before him. The tribe watched in absolute silence. Chaitan, unsure of what to say, felt his voice catch in his throat. He wanted to speak, but the moment was too heavy, too sacred. It was Yasha who broke the silence. She told him she had returned to honor a promise she made to a small boy long ago, a boy who spoke with the courage of a spirit far older than his age. The tribe gasped. Some laughed nervously, thinking they misheard. Others murmured in disbelief. Elders exchanged astonished looks. A few younger men felt jealousy twist in their chests. Chaitan finally found his voice. He told her that he had waited for her, that he held onto her words through every season, every hardship, and every migration. He told her that the boy she once encouraged had changed, but the sincerity of his heart had not. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of truth. Yasha smiled, not the polite smile she gave strangers, not the reserved smile she offered in diplomacy, but a genuine, gentle smile that reached her eyes. She then addressed the entire tribe. She explained that she did not come to claim a man or demand anything. She came to see whether the promise still lived, whether the boy's spirit had grown into the strength he once longed for. She asked to stay for a season, to live among them, observe, understand, and decide not based on a memory, but based on the present. The tribe respected her honesty, and so began a season that would change everything. Yasha lived as one of them. She helped women gather herbs, joined hunters on short expeditions, and sat with elders to share stories of her journeys far from the river bend. The more she spoke, the more the tribe saw her not only as a beautiful woman, but as a leader, a protector, a strategist, and a healer. She was skilled with a bow, yet gentle with children. She carried insight in her words, yet humility in her actions. Chaitan watched all this silently, deeply admiring the balance she held between strength and grace. And Ayasha watched Chaitan. She saw the way he treated others, not with force but with respect. He helped the elderly without being asked. He trained young boys with patience. He hunted not for glory but for necessity. He listened more than he spoke, but when he did speak, his words carried weight. She noticed how he was always the first to rise during cold mornings and the last to rest during difficult nights. She noticed how children ran to him when frightened, how warriors sought his advice, how elders trusted his judgment. Little by little, she saw the reflection of the boy she once met, but shaped into a man worthy of leadership. One evening, under sky full of stars, Chaitan and Yasha walked along the riverbank. The moon cast silvery patterns on the water, and the sound of the flowing current filled the comfortable silence between them. She asked him why he had kept his promise for so many years, why he waited when he could have chosen someone closer, someone present. Chaitan answered simply and honestly, "Because your words gave me strength when I had none, because you saw me when no one else did. Because you believed in the man I could become." Yasha felt something soften within her, a connection formed, not from obligation, not from childhood fantasy, but from genuine understanding. She realized that Chaitan's loyalty was not born from a boy's crush, but from the deep-rooted bond created by kindness at a moment he needed it most. And she realized something else. He was no longer following her shadow, he had become her equal. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Eventually, Yasha called for a gathering. The tribe formed a wide circle around her as she stepped forward with Chaitan at her side. The air was tense, expectant. She spoke calmly, her voice steady and clear. She said that when she returned, she came to honor a promise made long ago, but now she had stayed long enough to learn something more important. She had not returned for a promise made to a child. She wished to stay because she respected the man standing beside her. A wave of emotion swept across the tribe. Some cheered, some cried, elders nodded with deep approval, warriors drummed their spears into the earth, children danced around them, laughing with joy. Chaitan felt his chest tighten with gratitude, with awe, with a sense of destiny fulfilled. Yasha reached for his hand, and the tribe erupted in celebration as the sun dipped behind the mountains. Their union was not remembered as the story of a woman keeping a childish vow. It became the legend of two souls whose paths were woven by time, strengthened by hardship, and sealed by choice. The wooden birds Chaitan once carved became symbols of their story, proof that even fragile beginnings can grow wings strong enough to carry promises across years. And so the tale lived on forever, whispered by elders, retold beside glowing campfires, and carried in the hearts of generations. A reminder that love is not always sudden. It sometimes grows from patience, honor, and a promise spoken beside a quiet river by two souls destined to find each other.